So I actually want to start off by just sharing what I've heard from Randy. Um, a lot of the vocabulary that's being used is very familiar, and that's comforting. But there were certain themes that came out from your talk I just want to highlight right now, and hopefully I can highlight um, that in my talk today and then in the kind of larger presentation. Number one, I think there was a huge emphasis on listening, and I do believe listening and deep understanding is the root of innovation. Transformation and change will not occur if we don't have deep empathy. Number two, really a big focus on learning. I think too often as adults, we focus on youth learning, but we don't really focus on adult learning. And so that's going to be one of my themes as well in my longer presentation. How do we actually transform adult learning? And I actually think that in the world of the Common Core, we're not going to have a chance to transform what goes on in classrooms unless we truly understand how we learn differently as adults. Number three, it seems like the group is trying to make sense and develop their core values. And I remember going through this process with our organization, and I encourage you to keep on that. And I'll talk a little bit about core values and our belief statements as well. And the last one is, you said it right at the end, but you kind of cut it short. It was about, with great powers comes great responsibility. It's like the whole Spider-Man thing. Empowerment, school empowerment is hard. It's really difficult. And I think it's just as difficult for the system as it is for schools. So I completely agree with you. There is a lot of responsibility that comes with that, and I do think that there are lessons that we've learned in LA that hopefully we can inform for you over the next couple of days. So I'm going to give a quick overview of the Intensive Support and Innovation Center. We are one of the 5 local districts in LAUSD. We are 135 schools, 23 elementary, 24 middle, 84 high schools, and 4 span schools. Now, LA is a pretty massive geography. It's 710 square miles. We serve 650,000 K-12 students, and in addition, about 25% of our schools are charter schools. And I actually have a charter school background. I was a principal of a charter school before I came and worked for the large system. We, in ISIC, we call ourselves ISIC, Intensive Support and Innovation Center, we're the only non-geographic service center. So as you can see up there, there are 4 geographic service centers throughout LA Unified. We're the non-geographic one. We're the disruptive innovation in the system. No, when we were created in 2012, nobody really could make sense of us because we serve schools all throughout the district. Now, we put our schools in 3 large buckets. We serve all the schools that are considered focus schools based on our school performance framework. And that basically means that these schools have been challenged to improve. They're not performing where they need to, and they haven't shown improvement over the last 3 years. So they were put under our jurisdiction. Number 2, we serve all the schools that have network partners. So these are schools that have nonprofits that are helping to build their capacity at schools. And the 3rd bucket of our schools, we actually have these schools called pilot schools. There's 49 of these schools in the system. And these are schools that have complete autonomy from, they're probably our most autonomous, they are our most autonomous schools. They have freedom from board policies, from district policies, and also from our teacher contract. So we're notoriously known for having a really thick teacher's contract. They have waivers on a district teacher's contract. They have a 7-page teacher contract in essence. And so we were challenged with serving these schools. A little bit about our work over the last couple of years. We were established in 2012, so we're fairly new. We're only in our 3rd year. But we had to quickly establish ourselves and actually come together as adults and figure out what is it that we really believed in. How are we going to approach this work differently? In a large system like LA Unified, I like to joke, it's managed by memos and bulletins. So anytime a principal has the dilemma, they go online and look for the bulletin, and they look for the memo. But we, over the last 2.5 years, have not issued one memo or one bulletin, because we actually believe that the work has to be radically different. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we've done that in a longer session. We've rolled out some major district initiatives. Along with the Common Core, we've created a new teacher evaluation system. We agreed to an agreement with the Office of Civil Rights to radically change the way we serve English learners, along with many other initiatives, but those are 3 major ones. And probably the work I'm most proud of is the 18 transformation projects we've done in LAUSD. So we've transformed 18 schools, some in partnership with the federal government, some through parent triggers, but all in partnerships with the schools and their school communities. A lot of accomplishments. Probably the one I'm most proud of is that we've raised graduation rates in 2 years by 15% in our schools. And we have seen, when we first started, graduation rates were at 55.4% in our schools. Last year, our preliminary graduation rates just came out, 70.5. Probably the work I'm most proud of. I'm going to share with you a few lessons learned. Number 1, intensive support and innovation go hand in hand. So when the superintendent reorganized the district and put all of these schools under ISIC, in my own mind, I thought the work, or it was actually 2 parts of our work. There were schools that needed intensive support, and there were schools that were trying to do very innovative work, like our pilot schools. What I realized was that work actually has to go hand in hand. For schools to truly transform, the schools that need the most quote-unquote intensive support, pouring more resources into those schools will not actually help change those schools. We actually had to help and facilitate ways for them to radically transform themselves, change the way they do the work. They had to be innovative themselves. And what I also learned was that schools that are trying to do innovative work, a lot of our pilot schools or network partner schools, they actually need intensive support. They need air cover from the system. I spend a lot of my time giving schools air cover, basically making sure that we get out of their way. And that actually requires a lot of time and a lot of energy. Shockingly, huh? Second thing, transformation must be owned by school sites. So when I first started, the transformations, the major school transformations was a kind of district-imposed process. And what we saw was there was just so much resistance to anything that was imposed by the large system. So we had to actually figure out how do we change this. So I'm going to give you a very specific example. Schools were required to write these transformation plans. So we would get these 200-300 page documents. And what we realized was that very little of it was actually written by people at the schools. So we said, no, we got to do this work differently. So instead, we went into the schools and facilitated school reviews. What school reviews is not maybe what you typically think of as school reviews. School reviews are not done by a central system. They're actually done by schools themselves. They have to learn from each other to figure out what is it that they need to do best. And then we said, we're going to throw away your 200-page document, and we just want the 2 or 3 things you want to do this year. That's all we asked. Spoke about this a little bit earlier. Innovation must come from a deep, deep sense of authentic empathy. So I'm a big fan of design thinking. Have any of you been exposed to design thinking? Huge, huge, huge fan of design thinking. It starts with empathy. It's really trying to figure out what the issues are. Deep, rapid ideation, prototyping, and massive testing. So I'll talk about some of the things we've had to do to the central system, to redesign the central system to help support empowered school. And a lot of that came from design thinking. And then the last thing is, this is a statement. We innovate and transform learning to inspire excellence. One of the first things that we did, we came up with our core values. Soon after doing our core values, we came up with a collective why statement. It comes from Simon Sinek's work. Start with the why, then go to the how, then finally focus on the why. So we actually went through a process of our core beliefs, and what we did is we all had a sheet. Each one of us on a team had a sheet of values, and we took our 5 top values, personal values. And then I asked everybody to throw away one of them. So literally we took a trash can around, we threw away our one value, leaving 4. So somebody will take a look and they'll go, integrity, fine, I'll throw away integrity. It's funny. But we then said next, you now have 4 values, you're gonna go down to 4, then you go down to 3, and then you go down to 2. And at the end, we looked at the entire team, and some things really, really stood out. Innovation really stood out. Inspiration really stood out. And a deep sense of excellence really stood out. So that's how we created our why statement. And we have spent the last couple of years trying to not only transform the learning for youth, but also the learning for adults in the system. And I look forward to sharing a lot more about that over the next couple of days. So thank you for the time this morning.